Back home, it's good to be back home. You already know, and there's going to be obviously a lot of Cuba updates for all of you and so much more. You've deprived Kaya long enough, man. Show her. Yeah, W Weekend International Trip. Welcome back. Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're here, and there is a lot to talk about. Personal news-wise, obviously. Thanks for breaking shit lib sockmed, pal. What? I don't know what that means, but there's a lot of things I want to discuss. Obviously, that was a short trip. This was planned, or was it cut short? No, it was planned. It was going to be a short trip, and I think the timing of that was actually pretty crazy, considering that like I got back in literally the day before ICE was sent to every international and local airport, basically, in the United States of America. So like, there is that element of it as well. But regardless, that was, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'll get into that in a second. You have a lot of Israeli agents on your Twitter. I know. I dodged many bullets, many bullets. But folks, we're alive. Personal news wise, obviously, like, the personal news that I'm going to be delivering to you in between the time period where I press the stop streaming button and press the start streaming button. So help me God, that's what I'm gonna do is mostly related to the trip. So I'm probably gonna start there. And the Twitter is broken because the trip discourse is insane. Yeah, Twitter's always insane. Obviously, we'll get into all of that. I'll go through like some of the misinfo in general because there's a lot of it out there. It's actually unbelievable how bad it is. How's the jet lag? It's non-existent. Why would there be jet lag? I mean, it's just like East Coast time. It's not that bad. But yeah. We'll be doing some situation monitoring. Shit libs have been going crazy since Thursday. They're all over my timeline. I know. I have a tendency, I hate this, but like I do have a tendency to I have a tendency to basically bring out the worst in people. Like ultras hate it. It's very weird, very strange. Like ultras get mad, liberals get mad, right wingers get mad. It's like a lightning rod for some of the most like deeply unwell people. It's very, very frustrating. It's very strange. But in any case, people don't do anything ever on all sides. They're mad. Yeah, I know. Back from Havana, going through the insane misinfo from CIA/Mossad, monitoring the situation. Trump's Iran ultimatum off-ramp fixes market tensions for now. ICE agents at airports as travel comes to a halt. Get in now. Look, I'll just start off by did you have any ropa vieja in Havana? Yeah, I did. Here, let's blast off real quick. So one of the things that I'm going to say is that one of the things I'll say is this, before we get into situation monitoring and the like, I think a lot of people just simply don't do things, right? So when they see someone doing things, it triggers something in their minds where they go, well, I'm not doing anything. And that makes me feel somewhat like maybe a little immoral that I'm not doing anything. So I have to find a way to disparage people who are trying to do their best, right? And I think that's a lot of like the anger and resentment, even from like a totally non-ideological standpoint, comes from precisely that. Because like there are a lot of liberals who obviously want to fancy themselves, want to see themselves as like kind-hearted humanitarian people. So when they see like someone actually engaging in that act, someone that they don't like, they don't go, you know what? I'll hand it to them. These guys are doing this thing. It's fine. I don't really normally like this person, but it's fine. They go, let me find let me find a reason as to why this is cynical, right? This has got to be cynical. I think that's part of it. I think that's part of it. There's this like insecurity that's triggered in people that make them behave in this like very strange way. I don't understand it at all. I can't, like, I've never been that way at all. When I see someone who I oppose, when I see someone who's like maybe not the best person do something that like is surprisingly on in line with my worldview, I don't immediately go, fuck this guy, I'm gonna find a way to like disparage it or whatever. I'll openly say that I like it, right? I'll straight up say like, oh no, this is a good thing, or like I'll even recognize my own personal jealousy when someone gets to do something that I wanted to do, even if I don't agree with their worldview, even if I think they're cynical, even if I think they're grifters. Like one of the examples I give you is like Jackson Hinkle, right? Not the biggest fan of him, but I think it was fucking beast mode that he got to speak in Sanaa in front of, tens of thousands of Yemeni people, right? Like that's objectively a cool thing that he did, right? Like that's something that I wish I could do. I'm not going to sit here and be like, fuck him. Like fuck this guy, he's cynical. That is a strange, fascinating phenomena that I've seen. But it's odd. It's odd. And it's really funny because like a lot of people that I went on the trip with also for the first time recognize it because they've like heard me speak about it in the past. Like, how my haters are like mentally unwell. But they straight up were like, yeah, actually this is like unfucking bearable. You know what I mean? This is like genuinely unbearable. This is like your fucking haters are insane at like trying to disparage every little thing that happens. But in any case, they're mad that you're not corrupted with greed due to wealth like they are, which is why they don't have motivation to go out and participate, but they don't have the wealth. So they don't have the wealth anyway. But my point is, look, I didn't even know what the fuck was going on. It's actually this fascinating thing where like I don't have access to fucking Twitter all the time when I'm out there. So I had no idea what this was, what things were looking like in the United States of America and how the shit was being covered in America until I got internet. And I was like, oh my God, it's unbelievable. People are just straight up lying about like, people are so angry. The Cubans are so angry on the ground. The real Cubans hate these people. It's like, that's not true at all. It's unbelievable. You mean the actual world? Yeah, it was mind-boggling. I have not ever seen anything like it. They'd be like, protests are mounting outside of these hotels. They're banging on the doors. Like, that's not true. Like, literally not true. Like, not even remotely close to reality. It's so strange. It was such a strange phenomena to experience, right? It was such a strange thing to experience where like what I perceived on the ground, and what I saw in real life was entirely the opposite of what people were seeing on their timelines in the United States of America and elsewhere. Fascinating. They didn't have much internet for the last 2 days, and I couldn't check the insane narrative spin on this website. What a nightmare. How do people live like this? They just sit around and justify the U.S. government torment against smaller countries to feel powerful, the weakest-minded insects. And I will go through some of the top line, like, insanity. March literally posted this, and he was like, the first couple of fucking responses were really positive, and then immediately was like a sea of negative psychopathic takes. You're the common ground, MAGA liberals and ice real shills, insane quote page. Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy. Like, if you look at the background, of these people, it's basically every part of the American political spectrum except for, like, I guess, I don't know. It feels like it was just like every part of the American political spectrum with the exception of, like, socialists and communists. Like, it's shocking. And, many normal liberals, I think, are just not tuned into this discourse at all. Because, like, normal human beings that you would have a conversation around this sort of thing with are going to be like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean these people went? Bro, so when, as far as you being analyzed for drinking from an espresso cup, total insanity, a little cafecito? Yeah. The guy who made the glasses and shirts tweet is literally a Trump fan and liberals ate that up. Yeah. You're kind of becoming a litmus test now. Grateful you exist. Yeah, I don't think I should be this person. But it's very strange that people, it's very strange that that people behave like this. It's a very strange phenomena that I think it's a part of like the American existence. I think like it's reactionary. There's a right-wing attitude around the world on stuff like this, but like it's definitely. Hold on, I have to. There's so much going on in the background. I just like. Anyway, they do think and see you as socialist Jesus. Yeah. I truly believe that people have the capacity. I truly believe that people have the capacity to see through this. I think like people are kind-hearted individuals. It is very funny that like there is this assessment of like, how much everything I was wearing. It's like, they don't realize that one, people send me fucking free shit all the time. Two, people gift me shit all the time as well. Right. Like, not that it even matters. Even if I like go out and purchase it on my own, who gives a fuck what I'm wearing? You're an idiot. Like what? You think the price of this button up shirt is the reason why the Cubans are fucking suffering? Like what argument is this? Right. Yeah, he's like, look at this too. I mean, this is March's incredibly expensive hat, right? I mean, it's like this person is memeing, I think, but I don't think this hat is actually that expensive. But regardless, right? You're an idiot for trying to justify it to them. I'm not trying to justify it. I didn't even bring that stuff up at all. But there is obviously like areas where there is a tremendous amount of misinformation, and you have to clarify it, right? And it's so crazy. What's the situation with Zeo Nazi Daily when he tried to instigate? Sorry, tweet. We'll talk about that as well. My lib parents like you from what they read from the New York Times, and they're not dialed into this mess one bit. Are you planning on talking to Dan Le Batard about your trip? Yes, I do want to do that. I do want to set up an interview with him, or maybe have a like private conversation with him, and then maybe have a public one later. Yep, like the kneecap concert causing the blackout. I saw this one a lot. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy. Like one of the things that I found fascinating is this. It ties back into the argument, right? It ties back into like part of what I want to explain. Part of what I wanted to explain to people is like the complex nature, the complex bureaucratic nature of these sanctions that America has placed upon Cuban society, like Cuban commerce, and how restrictive it is, right? And it's very interesting that like American restrictions that make it illegal for American citizens to do normal shit in Cuba, they sound so silly. They sound so insane that you would think, like when you hear it at first, it's kind of like Israel in that regard, where you're like, that sounds ridiculous. There's no way that that's a real restriction. Shut up. Right? Like the thing that people were complaining about, like the 5-star hotel shit, right? I found it really strange that they clipped me talking about it, and it's objectively the truth, right? That is objectively the truth. I just said literally what the American government's restrictions are, right? And people were just like, sure, buddy, and they ran with it because it's so odd. It's so fucking odd. It's like, but it's just that, like, you're never going to go to Cuba, so for you, it doesn't matter. The State Department and the Treasury Department specifically makes it illegal for American citizens to stay at whatever accommodations they want to stay in, with the exception of like 4 hotels. Okay. They updated the talking point that the hotel you stayed at was on a ban list. Yeah, I know. A YouTuber used that clip to say you were lying, but when they looked up the actual law, they said you were telling the truth, but you were obfuscating some facts. No, I wasn't. What a lot of people, I think, don't understand is that this Progressive International, Code Pink, like this entire flotilla convoy of aid by air and by water was put together, obviously with allowances from the Cuban government and also with allowances from the American government, because you can't do a massive 600-person humanitarian aid mission without getting the go-ahead from the Cuban government and without getting the go-ahead from the American government. Like I have the paperwork right here. I have the OFAC restrictions paperwork that I had to sign right in my hands, okay? I signed a piece of document. I signed a piece of documentation in order to, as an American citizen, I had to get a travel affidavit, a general specific licenses travel affidavit, okay? Wait, the U.S. approved that aid mission? Yeah, of course. Of course the United States approved that aid mission. The United States Treasury Department has to approve anyone that's going to Cuba. A lot of people don't realize this, okay? Especially if you're doing any sort of aid, any sort of humanitarian aid. There are levels to the cruelty that America is willing to subject the Cubans to. But the reality is that the number one telltale sign for international human rights organizations is the restriction of humanitarian aid. So the American government, at least for now, has not restricted humanitarian aid, but humanitarian aid alone is not going to be able to make up for the lack of imports and lack of exports anyway, and we can't fucking send, barrels of oil regardless, so like we can't actually address the number one problem that Cubans are facing. But yeah, every single part of this trip was directly sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury, and a lot of people don't understand that, right? And except for this guy, who, ironically enough, in an effort to shit on me, accidentally showed the truth. Hey, by the way, Hasan just broke U.S. law. Oh, and he could face a $250,000 fine and up to 10 years in prison once he gets back to the States. Hey, FBI, get on it. 30,000 likes. The U.S. Department of State maintains a Cuba prohibited accommodations list, which bans American travelers from staying at or paying for over 400 government-owned hotels, guest houses, and resorts. Now, isn't that fucking fascinating? Tip-to-tip reaction, brother. I'm lasering you into the fucking night sky like a shooting star if you think I'm going to be talking about the tip-to-tip, here, I'll unban you. I'll give you a week off. You please, dude. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. There's so much shit going on, and I have to literally cover it. And you're out here... You're out here being like, have you watched Tip to Tip? Are you fucking delusional? Live on the same planet as us, please. Oh my God. So I said, yeah, the U.S. law is fucking stupid. I didn't break it, but this post is the only one that ironically acknowledges the comical U.S. restrictions on what U.S. citizens are allowed to do in Cuba. The five-star hotel is only one of the few hotels the U.S. government allows Americans to legally stay in. And it's crazy because, like, why the fuck should the American government regulate what American citizens want to do in another country? But that exists. Okay? Isn't that fucking nuts? That's insane. It's the truth. And what blows my mind about this, I was first going to suggest you stay at a Casa Particular, but if you are there with a group, it would only make sense. Yeah, there's 600 people. The island is experiencing a total blackout. It's virtually impossible for 600 people to be coordinated in 600 different houses, or like however many different houses. There's not that many Casa Particulars anyway. Casa Particular is basically like an Airbnb system for regular Cubans to be able to open up their homes to American citizens that are coming in. Some of them are allowed. It's in the list of housing that you can stay at. Okay, and it's awesome. It's dope. When I go back to Cuba, I will absolutely do that because I'm not, I'm not going to be going with like a massive humanitarian aid mission. I didn't choose where we're staying, right? But if you're there with a whole group, it only makes sense. The hotel is the same place. I went through this whole thought process within seconds. It's weird that people wrote articles about it. Also, that hotel wasn't that fancy. I went there. Yeah, it's not a very fancy hotel, but it doesn't matter. It's fucking Cuba. It's a very poor country. It's been kept poor by the United States of America. And what's ironic about this restrictive process is that these are privately owned hotels. So when people are talking about like the electricity grid and what the hotels are doing, they have generators. Okay. Not only do they have generators, but they're literally taking up some of the fucking necessary resources through private commerce. And it's ironic that that unjust system is precisely what the Americans want to fucking bring about to the fucking island. So the people that are literally criticizing the claiming that the blockade doesn't exist don't know what the restrictions look like. Number one. Number two, they're literally fucking complaining that like these hotels they have their own generators and they are able to keep the lights on. Yeah, because they're fucking privately owned. That is the fucking problem. That's what America wants. America's literally saying they will only allow oil into the fucking island for companies like that, okay? For privately owned hotels like that. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's like what we're trying to fucking address. Now they're spreading a lie that you guys were literally throwing food at Cubans. Have you seen this? Yes, I saw that too. It's so cynical. Beyond the hypocrisy of Piker's vacation, this just isn't true. As I know from personal experience, if you'd like help booking a Casa Particular next time he visits, you can do so through Airbnb. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I didn't fucking choose this. And yet they're literally just leaning into the lack of knowledge overall. Okay, they're leaning into the lack of knowledge that people have. Okay, and in the process, they're basically admitting that I'm right. Right? They're basically admitting that I'm right, but it doesn't matter because it's just pure anger. Why does trip cause so much outrage? I'm stupid. It's even worse than China. I think it's because. It's partially because of the fact that like there is a State Department need here, because the goal here is obviously to bring awareness to the blockade, and the American government spent 60 fucking years saying it's not the blockade doesn't exist, while simultaneously enforcing it to use that weird invisibility of the blockade, the system of bureaucracy that's implemented, to say it's actually the Cuban government's fault. It's actually communism's fault. That's kind of the point. And I will be addressing this in the mini doc that we put together. Austin Ox is working on it right now. I basically landed in Cuba and spent every moment that I had. I didn't participate in a lot of the stuff and any of the stuff really that the Progressive International was doing, which is why it's also like additionally funny. While they're on the one hand, they're lying about like the events that took place. On the other hand, they keep saying I was, a principal participant of these events that took place. I wasn't. I was actually hanging out. I didn't do anything with Progressive International, even though I love those guys and they did fantastic work out there. Because I locked in with Belly of the Beast, the independent news outlet in Cuba, one that I really, really leaned into. I mean, they're fucking incredible. They do incredible work. Shouts out to Belly of the Beast. I will forever ride for them. Okay, they give me a little mug too. But basically, I spent every moment just conducting interviews, like talking to regular Cubans, talking to people that are doing incredible work, and investigating like how this complex system of restrictions has actually harmed Cuban production every step of the way. That was my goal, because I had talked to a lot of people ahead of time of this trip. Some people who legitimately said things like, Hasan, you don't understand. It's actually the Cuban government is incredibly repressive. They're very bad. They're not responsive to the needs of the people. They're hoarding antibiotics. Like, I heard so much from people who were otherwise kind people at times, and they were just deluded. And it made me it made me think there has to be a reason for, why people are saying this stuff. Like there has to be some truth to this, right? And it wasn't just Cubans that were saying it. There's a lot of, Americans that are even remotely well-read on the situation have read the State Department talking points for the most part. So I wanted to figure that out. I wanted to investigate that, and that's precisely what I did. It's decades of propaganda, and it's so silly. Like you can kind of imagine how silly it is. Especially if you go to Cuba, you very quickly understand that like almost everything that you learn about Cuba is just ridiculous. Either a great exaggeration or just an outright lie. Hasan, go to Gaza. Hasan, go to Cuba. Okay, Hasan, why did you actually go and show the truth? You need to be locked up. Also, here's a list of imperial rules designed to kill these people you're helping. Yeah, I know. It's very strange. They say I sit around and farm donations at home when I cover this stuff. And then when I go there, they say, how dare you go there? You're performative. It kind of feels like they just don't want me to go there or do anything. It just kind of feels like they just don't want me to say or do anything at all, right? Like it's more so the fact that I'm doing something that is very frustrating for them. So in any case, it's just an unbelievable amount of lies have been told about this trip, and obviously because everyone that's on this trip are in Cuba and they don't have access to the internet. They had, myself included, had no way of knowing what the fuck people were saying and what kind of insane unhinged propaganda was like being slung around. Is that ADL audio real? I don't know what the ADL audio is. Were you able to experience Medea Benjamin? I was. Reports that you died in Cuba? Yeah, I'm dead. This is pre-recorded. You ruffles and feathers. I think that's a good thing with all the dusty old bags we got around. Yeah. So anyway, I guess this is like one of the TikToks that was like in defense of what was going on.
About people coming here to Cuba to deliver humanitarian aid are very interesting to me. One of the headlines and some of the commentary that I've seen is in terms of all of the people that came here and they stayed at a 4-star hotel while the rest of Cuba was in darkness. I want to remind you all that while it's not illegal for American citizens to come here to Cuba, it is absolutely illegal for us to stay in any of these hotels that you see on this screenshot. We cannot stay at all of these listed brand hotels. We cannot stay at a mom and pop hotel. We cannot stay at anywhere that is Cuban owned in Cuba, because that was instated by your United States government. And those who do stay with Cuban families, because the first time I came to Cuba in November, I stayed with a family. They actually have to take our passport numbers and register us because of our United States government. Again, it is not illegal for American citizens to travel to Cuba. However, just like the sanctions and the blockade, the United States government makes damn sure that we don't support the Cuban people. The second thing I saw was, all of these influencers spent all of this money when they just could have given it to the Cuban people. How? Do you know that because of the blockade and the sanctions, that United States citizens cannot send money?
Yes, it's crazy. People don't realize, like, all of that aid, we had to literally physically send it there. Okay, like someone had to physically put that aid in the hands of Cubans. Okay, that's another crazy part of this, where people are like, oh, you don't understand. Like, why didn't they just send the aid? It's like, you're a fucking idiot. You think we didn't think about this? Not only was there like a cultural component to this humanitarian aid trip, because like there's so much orientalization that's going on here. Like you're treating the regular Cuban citizens like they're fucking animals. It's disgusting. Like the way you're talking about it, like you think they don't experience joy. You think they don't care about art. You think they don't care about being treated like fucking human beings. It's disgusting. There's so much like speaking over regular Cubans that are living in Cuba in this conversation that is mind-boggling. It's alarming. It's gross. And I cannot believe how much both liberals Both liberals and fucking right-wingers have engaged in this. Like, it's crazy to me. One of the aspects of one of the craziest pieces of misinformation was that kneecap guys sucked up all the energy and killed Cubans in a hospital. The reason why the Cuban hospital ran out of energy is not because the fucking electricity grid is falling apart. I mean, that's part of it for sure, of course, but there's not enough gas on the island for their generators to work. That is our fault. America, we did that. Okay, what do you think is going to happen when we've starved this island of necessary resources by stopping other countries from being able to freely trade with Cuba? It's illegal for America to implement this blockade. It's legal to trade with Cuba. It's legal to import Cuban goods. It's legal to export Cuban goods. It's unfucking believable. It's unbelievable. Kneecap participated in one of the many daily festivals that happen during the day. Okay? That festival that they participated in had Cuban musicians that were also participating in it. It was free for all Cubans to attend, and it was overwhelmingly Cubans that were there. It blows my fucking mind that these people can be so cynical and so gross that they think that like regular everyday Cubans don't want to experience fucking joy. It blows my mind. You just don't even want to think. Like, you literally can see it. You can see it in real time. You can see Cubans dancing, singing, having a good time. And you're like, oh, they must be brainwashed. Someone was claiming that they were being bribed with treats, right? I saw your reply to this guy too. Yeah, this is the liberal version of this, right? Cuban doctors told me they have to sew up patients mid-surgery when the generators run out of gas, but MAGA on here are too busy lying about lying about the people that went out to Cuba with aid to turn everything into a distractive spectacle. Pure MAGA propaganda. You are cattle if you fall for it. The audacity beyond your laptop tweeting from a five-star hotel powered by generators while the local hospital goes dark. You are truly, genuinely a psychopath. Wow. This guy is one of the biggest, most troubled, most schizophrenic, vulgar demons I have ever encountered in my fucking life, and he has the audacity to claim that he is a humanitarian and a liberal. Shame on this fucking piece of shit. Shame on you. Unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. I wasn't even in Cuba when I tweeted this, for the record. But it doesn't matter. It's all misinformation. I couldn't tweet this from Cuba because there was not only was there not electricity, but there was also no internet. Like, there was just not enough internet. The infrastructure is crumbling because of what we have done. God, it's fucking nasty. What a nasty piece of shit this guy is. Shame on you. If you have the capacity to feel shame, that is. You don't. Okay? Oh, unfucking believable. Unfucking believable. I mean, I dunked on him too, and he lost his mind. There was a couple like ultras that were also saying some dumb shit too, and I had some strong words for them too. But yeah. I cannot believe it. It's just, it really, I saw the best in humanity with regular, everyday, ordinary Cubans trying to make the most of their horrible circumstances. Okay? And then I come back and I see people on the sidelines trying to do their very best to continue justifying the asphyxiation that we have implemented on this island. The people died because you morons threw a giant party and sucked up all the electricity. These are fucking Cubans, man. These are everyday Cubans having a great time on a free concert that was thrown together. And it wasn't just Kneecap. It was like, Cuban artists that were also participating in it. I say you're a fucking insanely indecent person and you should really think hard about why you're repeating obvious moronic lies that MAGA is spamming on the timeline. Vicious scumbag. I think I cannot believe that the average person is this indecent. I think this is cynicism born out of just like being on this website. I cannot believe that people could be like this. Was reading on Dropsite that when the power goes out, the doctors in pediatric hospitals have to hand pump the ventilators for babies. Dropsite got this reporting from Belly of the Beast. Yes. That's precisely the case. I talked to a doctor, like I said, in the tweet that this fucking dipshit was responding to. I talked to a doctor that told me that in our interview, when the power goes out, when the generators fail and they're mid-surgery, they just basically sew the patient back up and they go, we'll try again later. Unfucking believable, dude. Unfucking believable. Did you hang at the Malakon at night? People are dancing, making music all night long. It's beautiful. Yeah. I didn't. I went to just a couple different like bars. The first night I went to a bar with the Kneecap Boys. It was awesome. I had a great time there. We just dumped a lot of cash to the best of our ability. On everyday Cubans, but it was much better in my opinion to just like go to like regular bars and regular restaurants that were operating in spite of the circumstances, because it was there were just like real regular Cubans there. It was crazy when you mentioned NeuroSim, and then you had people argue deep in the comments how it's fake or not a real cure, or whatever. There are a million cures. Made me so goddamn mad. Americans would rather die than admit a foreign enemy has any benefit. Exactly. They do not want to comprehend like real shit. They just, if it goes against their priors, they just go, no, that's not real. I don't believe it. I don't want to believe it. It's unbelievable. It's a lie. It's crazy. Never seen anything like it. Mart said, out of Cuba now, on the way home, and finally have access to the internet. I'm having a hard time putting into words the thoughts I have on my experience there the past couple of days. The level of cruelty to the oil blockade the U.S. imposed on a day-to-day lives of everyday Cubans cannot be overstated. Everyday conveniences and essential services that we take for granted are completely non-existent. Entire systems that were already dilapidated by decades of sanctions and restrictions from participating globally start to break down exponentially when you remove fuel from the equation. The innovation required to accomplish the most basic tasks is astounding. People existing at night in complete darkness of the blackouts, just trying their best to lead normal lives in spite of the lack of power. Yet every Cuban person I met was extremely kind, patient, and welcoming. The resilience that the people of the island have is extremely admirable and heartbreaking to witness. Cuba is a beautiful place with amazing people and insane potential. What the U.S. has done to that island is shameful and nothing short of inhumane. Okay? It's an experience that I think every American should have. It will change you. Okay? It will change you. When Ben Rhodes told me before I went to Cuba that I was going to be very sad, he was somewhat right. I landed and I could not believe how beautiful this island was. I could not believe how beautiful the people were. That was my first reaction. I was like, wow, I'm not a big nature guy, but this is one of the coolest places I've ever been to in my life. And then it was an emotional roller coaster. It turned into deep sadness. You arrive in Havana and you start seeing the trash that can't be collected because there's not enough oil and gas. There's not enough oil to operate the trash trucks, right? And then you're like, it's fucked up. It's fucked up what we've done. You see the houses that are dilapidated, people living in them. It looks like, they were bombed out. The outside looks so pretty, but the paint is chipping. Part of that is obviously the salt water that destroys the paint, right? It requires a tremendous amount of upkeep that this unfortunately poor island does not have, right? You get a little surprised too. The expectation is all the cars are going to be from the 50s. That's not the case. There's new vehicles in Cuba, and there's also still vehicles driving around. I mean, it's very limited. It's very limited in comparison to like what the normal traffic would look like on the island, from what I understand from people that have been there prior, right? There's a tremendous amount. I mean, there's a queue system that the government has implemented. There is obviously a lot of not hoarding necessarily, but like stockpiling of the strategic reserves so they can just like hopefully continue surviving to the best of their ability, right? And then after that sadness goes away, you get angry because you start thinking about why these are the conditions that regular Cubans are subjected to. And you realize, like, we fucking did this. And we're still doing this. And so many fucking Americans are oblivious, or the ones who at least know what's going on in Cuba defend it and repeat lies. It's unbelievable, dude. And then, then anger never really goes away. Okay? It never really fucking goes away. But, I guess that anger transfers to the way that some deeply disturbed pieces of shit and the way that they operate. And your anger basically turns into not just anger against the American government, but against the anger that you experience from people who justify this stuff. Don't talk about their poverty. It makes Americans think they deserve it. Talk about how much white people want to access the country they have and how little they get in spite of how much white people take. How do you feel about the concessions that Cuba is willing to give back to the famous plantation owners and bourgeoisie assets? Brother, this is no longer a time for ideological rigidity. Not only that, but also the official Cuban government's position, even from the Castro days onward, was always to offer financial restitution for the assets that were taken. It's just that America shut off their exports to the United States of America to render that impossible to do. If you knew about Cuban history, you would recognize that what Cosio told Ryan Grimm in front of me, ironically enough, I was there. I also interviewed Cosio. I will be releasing that after we show the mini doc, which will have pieces of all the different interviews that I conducted, some of the more high impact moments that explain, hopefully, to people that did not know about like what is the reason for why Cuba is experiencing these shortages. It will prove to you without a shred of a doubt that this is America's doing. This is America's design, and it's unbelievable. Okay, it is unfucking believable until you go there and you talk to the people who are directly involved in the distribution of pharmaceutical products, the people that are responsible for the creation of medicine, the people that are responsible for the logistics of delivering the medication. Until you see that with your own two eyes, you're like, there's maybe some of this has to be mismanagement by the government, right? Like, and then you talk to these people and you're like, oh my fucking God, it's unbelievable. Amazing how the media can tell you all about human rights abuses in Iran, but when the U.S. is causing people on ventilators to die in Cuba, there's radio silence. Apparently, human rights only matter when we need an excuse to start a war. Yes, that is precisely the case. Yeah, the Cuban offer to repay has been on the table for decades. Cuba made this offer in 1964 after the U.S. rejected compensation in the form of interest-paying bonds, similar to how Mexico in 1930s compensated taken property. U.S. rejected it, assuming quick overthrow of Castro. Cuba is opening negotiations with a bid that's been on the table for decades. It's not new, okay? It's not new at all. It's actually something that the Cuban government doesn't even need to do, but has openly entertained, okay? Over and over again for fucking decades. Unbelievable. Straight up decades. It is not dissimilar to what you knew prior to October 7 about everyday Palestinian existence, if you knew anything at all, versus what you know now, okay? Because it's the same forces of Western empire, Western imperialism that have created this hermetically sealed information vacuum to make you think, to make you believe a falsehood. It's that simple. It's just, there's no other way to describe it other than American state-sponsored propaganda. And it's pervasive, and I got to see it in real time. You know how sometimes I'll talk about how misinformation on the internet spreads about things that you and I experience together when I'm live streaming? Oftentimes it's about silly shit like, oh, Zohran Mamdani hates Hassan Piker. He disinvited him from the event that I attended, you know, right? Like the event that I was literally at. And you'll be like, why the fuck do people believe this? This is so crazy. Because it leans into like a comfortable narrative, right? That's obviously unimpactful. That's not like a significant story, but like this is being mass produced in a similar way for a much more consequential version of events. It's the same with Iran and the sanctions regime against Iran. It's the same with Cuba. It's unfucking believable. It's unbelievable. Why don't you and Charlie McBride get along? Charlie McBride? Wait, is that who I think it is? Who the fuck is Charlie McBride? I have no idea who you're talking about. Hasanabi blaming it all on the U.S. shifts the problem away from the fact that Cuba has systemic issues with an authoritarian government and their planned economy. Blame needs to go both ways. Yeah, no, you're a fucking delusional moron if you think that that's the case. Okay? Sorry, it's just the truth. There is literally, once you see it, it's impossible for you to unsee it. Okay? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Hassan hate is beginning to...
It's abso-fucking-lutely ridiculous. You are making shit up. Okay? There is no both sides in this equation, okay? 60 years of fucking actively trying to undermine. Dude, you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. When you see some of these interviews, you will fucking understand exactly what I'm talking about, okay? I'll give you a teaser. One example. And there are millions of examples like this. I'll start with one example. I talked to a surgeon. Okay, he is a highly esteemed facial reconstruction surgeon. There's a lot of people who need jaw reconstruction because they have lung cancer or throat cancer, and this surgeon goes in and does this incredibly complex procedure where they rebuild a jaw for the patients. Okay. And, there are more old school methods in the reconstruction process. And then there are newer methods that are available. There's a 3D printer. So this guy that I interviewed, okay, I'll tell you his name. This guy that I interviewed, his name is, hold on. Guillermo Sanchez, okay? Guillermo Sanchez, he's a jaw surgeon. We took a photo with some of his students and other doctors as well. You might have seen it. So he's a world-renowned expert in facial reconstruction surgery, okay? And I was talking to him about how this stuff works. And he said that obviously they can't purchase any medical equipment that has 10% or above American components, right? So that right off the jump is crazy because the way commerce works, the way international trade works, like there's a lot of shit that has 10% or above American components in it, right? So what these guys have to do is find alternatives. Oftentimes in Germany or France, right? They make medical equipment. So he finds a German company that's willing to sell this 3D printer. It's multiple millions of dollars, right? And they get charitable contributions, charitable donations. They get the funds together and they buy this thing. And they start using this 3D printer to do the facial reconstruction surgeries, to build these new jaws for these patients in Cuba, right? Long story short, the machine breaks. Now it's a German machine. Germany's not America. It doesn't have American components in it. But it's a very complex machine. And in order to fix it, in order to repair the machine, you need either a German engineer to come to Cuba and fix it personally, or at least like be able to teach a Cuban engineer to be able to fix it. There's proprietary tech in this, obviously, so they're not going to do that. They have to send a German engineer. So he calls up the German company and he says, hey, we bought this piece of equipment. Unfortunately, it's broken. We need a technician. And the German business says, sorry, we can't do it because we're afraid of American punishments. We cannot send a technician, nor can we send the necessary components to fix this multiple $1 million piece of equipment. So now it's just sitting in a fucking room. Now it's just sitting in a fucking room. And the impact of that is that either many of the Cuban patients that need this reconstructive surgery don't get it, and they have to go back to like older methods. Or if there's any sort of 3D printing that takes place, they have to go to Mexico. They have to go to their Mexican counterparts and lean into their Mexican counterparts or their Canadian counterparts in the field of medicine that are willing to take time out of their day to recreate these jaws so they can send it to Cuba, adding an unnecessary part into the process. Isn't that fucking unbelievable? That's just one story. I'm going to tell you, I talk to doctors, I talk to surgeons, I talk to nurses, I talk to neuroscientists. There is a story like this with every single person. Okay? Unbelievably cruel. Unbelievably cruel. Unjustifiable in every way, shape, and form. There's got to be someone we can find on Twitter that can fix it. You sound like Parenti talking about Cuba. Well, because Parenti also went to Cuba. And when you go to Cuba, especially at the time that he went to Cuba, things were different. Okay? But when you go to Cuba and you see how responsive this government is to the needs of its people and what kind of vision they had and how they implemented said vision in spite of all of these restrictions, you can never unsee it. It's just a shocking revelation all of a sudden. It breaks apart every single thing that you might have heard from afar about who is the responsible party. Will your interview with Jeremy Corbyn be in the doc? Yes. We will also release the interviews individually after as well. We're just going to put some hits, some major hits from the interviews that I conducted. First, the mini doc's going to come out. Then my Cosio interview is going to come out. It was like an hour and 30 minutes, almost 2 hours that I talked to the foreign vice minister. I brought up a lot of the, talking points, and I just like rapid fired them to get him to address some of these things. But it's, we'll of course react to them as well. Do you know when the ETA for it is? Yes, Ostenox is working on it. Okay. It's very, very, very It's like 8 hours of footage basically. I spent every waking moment, pretty much every waking moment filming when I wasn't traveling around, which was very difficult to do regardless, right? But yeah. An old tweet to your point. Yeah. This is Arturo Dominguez responding to Camila Cabello. Want to talk about all the more than 1,000 sanctions over 65 years, the failed invasion of the island? What about the CIA-backed terrorist attacks? Let's face it, that Cuba has been able to withstand the worst of the U.S. can throw at it for that long is pretty damned impressive. Pretty sure that's a sign of success, especially if there weren't any sanctions. And don't talk to me about repression where federal agents are executing people on the streets for nothing more than being observers. All the people Marco Rubio's locking people up for speaking up for Palestine. And when it comes to free speech, let's talk about how Rubio just sanctioned several content creators and independent journals on the island for doing nothing more than showing U.S. Embassy vehicles cutting in line for fuel during gas shortages. Y'all's duplicity is astounding. Yeah, people think like it's unbelievable. There's like people will be like, oh my God, there's like tremendous repression. Belly of the Beast is an independent news outlet that operates operates inside of Cuba. Okay. They're comprised of like Cuban journalists, international reporters, and the like. Okay. Totally independent. They literally got arrested by the government. Okay. And I was talking to them, right? I was talking to one of the guys. Like they got arrested. They got grabbed and arrested in the process because there was like the SOS Cuba protests that were like the first time ever on the island. There was like actually a big movement, right? This was like, COVID, post 2019, a lot of the oil embargo restrictions that actually started creating like rolling blackouts. The island actually was suffering a lot more visibly, right? Post 2019, this is the 2021 when the SOS Cuba, American-backed SOS Cuba protests were happening on the island, and they were covering it, and the government actually arrested them. I was like, so how do you feel about that, right? Like, because you obviously have told me a lot. Like, you talked about how like moral and how responsive this government is, but like your guys got fucking arrested for covering this. He was like, brother, think about your treatment in the hands of the American government. Like the way they brutalize you personally, like you've been fucking, tear gassed and stun grenaded. Like it's not acceptable, of course, but it's like the level of repression in comparison to like the everyday attitude of the American government and the American police towards freedom of expression is not even comparable, right? So yeah, there is a level of repression. Internally. Of course there is. They're under warlike conditions every day. Yeah, the dude literally said, free you. They're experiencing war. They're experiencing war. America is not experiencing war, and it does this to its own citizens. Now imagine how ridiculous, how repressive America would be if they were also experiencing fucking war. Also, that stuff is utterly irrelevant when we're talking about the sanctions. It's not relevant at all, right? Two things to be true at the same time. Yeah, a lot of Cubans want reform, but the embargo isn't making things better. If anything, the embargo is giving the government more popularity. The government deserves the popularity. I will fucking stand on that, by the way. Yeah. And there are absolutely here. I'll talk about the other side of this. Okay. I'll talk about the other side of this. Now that I've talked about the resilience of the island, the things that they've been able to accomplish, I'll talk about the other side as well. In 2019, while the oil restrictions were starting, which would then create a system of like rolling blackouts and visible poverty for the first time ever, according to like people that have been to Cuba before, according to people that have been living in Cuba for a long time, things started changing in 2019. Right? It wasn't anywhere near as bad as it is currently because this is the maximalist version of the oil blockade. It's a full and total blockade. Okay? At the same time, this is before COVID, the Cuban government actually, for the first time ever, no longer just had free internet access, unrestricted, by the way, unrestricted free internet access in their parks and in certain government buildings and hotels and the like, but now they created a bandwidth, like a system where anyone could access the internet. And that's where the fucking National Endowment Foundation propaganda, Spanish-speaking Twitter accounts started popping up. Okay? Going absolutely nutty mode. And yes, for a lot of young Cubans that saw the abundance and the wealth only 90 miles away, their immediate family members that have been able to escape Cuba and find a piece of that American prosperity, that's all they saw. They saw American capitalism and they saw the communism on the island as being the primary as bearing the primary responsibility for their everyday struggles. And nowadays, there is a decent chunk, I will admit, there is a decent chunk of young Cubans that absolutely, in Cuba, that believe that the government's lying about the blockade. It's unbelievable, but it's true. Right? There are people who have been deluded into thinking by way of their relatives, by way of the American propaganda that is like all over the internet, that think that the reasons as to why there's rationing taking place because the government's like, ridiculous attitude towards rationing or whatever. It's like their mismanagement, and not because of this insane blockade. Okay? I'm glad you're at least acknowledging this finally, Law. You call it delusion, but at least you're speaking to it. Yeah, I call it delusion because it's not true. Okay? I call it delusion because it's objectively untrue. That's it. I mean, how can you look at a system where you think America yields prosperity? I'm American. I live here. I know what it fucking looks like. Okay? I know what it looks like. And it's not as though this government is even taking the necessary steps to lie to you. They're straight up saying if Cubans do any sort of migration en masse because of the starvation that we have caused on that island, we will round their boats up and we will put their asses in Guantanamo Bay. How can you sit there and assume this administration that has openly said, if Cubans try to fucking come to the United States of America, we're going to round them up and we're going to send their asses back to Guantanamo Bay with the military, and you're over there going, oh no, it's actually not this fucking government's blockade. It's actually, it's actually the mismanagement from the government itself. It's ridiculous. We can't excuse Cuban oppression as civil rights violation just because the U.S. does it too. What the fuck? I don't understand this logic. It's not an excuse. It's utterly immaterial in the conversation that we're having. And the only reason why we have that conversation, is to subtly justify, or maybe not so subtly justify, the actions that the American government is taking to make it seem as though there is a necessary reason for these sanctions. I'm not going to fucking put up with that shit. That's it. That's it. I've seen the impact. I've stared these people in the fucking eyes, okay? I cannot turn around. I cannot fucking turn around and act as though there is an alternative reason for why this exists, okay? It's the same principle behind, but what about Hamas? As Israel was carrying out a genocide, okay? And the reason why I bring up the government repression that we experience here is because I need you to understand the material conditions are very different in Cuba. And it's born out of this massively consequential sanctions regime that is starving the fucking island and frustrating the people. And the government literally has very limited resources to make sure that they continue surviving, that they continue fucking feeding the people, they continue actually giving people the necessary treatment for free, mind you. Okay? And then on top of that, people are like running around being like, Donald Trump is awesome. He's going to fucking save us. Under brutal, ruthless siege, any government would be infinitely more aggressive. Infinitely more aggressive. When we were waging a world war, World War II. We rounded up every single Japanese person in California and put them in fucking concentration camps. Your inability to find any fault in the Cuban government waters down your stance. No government is perfect, and especially one that's been suffocated for so long. You can acknowledge that, but without it, but it's okay, and just because. No, I don't think you guys understand. I don't think you understand the point I'm making here, okay? I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to just tell you the fucking truth. That's it. This is the same process that we have to go through every single time. Every single time a conversation takes place. What about Iran? What about the Iranian government? Okay? What about Hamas? What about what Hamas does to his own people? If one much more powerful force is literally sieging this island nation with 11 million people, engaging in siege warfare, and the government is trying to maintain stability in the process, of course I'm going to try to get dumb fuck Americans to comprehend what that would look like if it happened here, by pointing to historic examples of what we have done when we weren't being sieged by a much more powerful force, but we were engaging in a world war where Pearl Harbor happened and we put every single Japanese person in a concentration camp. What the fuck are you talking about? We engaged in the process of internment during our war, our world war. That's what governments do. They take a heavy-handed approach when they are constantly waging war. Now imagine what's going on in Cuba for 60 fucking years. These sanctions are not helpful. They are designed in a way where there is plausible deniability so that people that experience it eventually say, oh, the government is just lying about this blockade. It can't be this is all I've known. All I've known my whole life is just like fucking unnecessary poverty. This sucks. There's wealth right there, 90 miles out the coastline, prosperity. The reason why I'm bringing this part up, by the way, is because I need people to understand, like, of course there are people that live through this process and develop this opinion, just as there were tens of millions of Americans who looked at the current design of American society and thought a right-wing fascist monster was actually going to create a new wave of American prosperity. There are people with different mentalities everywhere. No one's fucking monolithic, and no one is going to be on the ball. Just because you live through it doesn't mean you're going to have ancient wisdom and you're going to be able to figure out exactly why things are happening. Okay? But I'm sorry, it's just pure victim blaming. And I don't want to do that. It's ridiculous. The reason why I criticize the U.S. government when we slip on journalistic freedom and freedom of speech infringements is because there is no country that has the same power gap between us and another country that's like enforcing its will upon the American population. Okay? It's not comparable. There is no country that is the hegemonic superpower. We are the global imperial hegemon. Okay? So there is no comparison where another country that is enforcing a siege upon the American population and the American government trying to hold it together and trying to fight back against it. Okay? And in the process, trying to maintain stability and therefore engaging in repression. The reason why, of course, I criticize the American government's form of repression is because America is the hegemonic superpower. It's not even relevant to the equation that there are naysayers out there. All of the world's protesters can get together and it doesn't change the American calculation, the American government's calculation one bit. Okay? In To Kill a Nation, Michael Parenti addresses this so perfectly. Okay? They also see how shitty their lives are and that money and energy goes to the hotels that aren't allowed to stay in. I know that's not as relevant now. The biggest issue in the oil embargo right now and the energy crisis has been building for years. Yes, absolutely. So this is the other aspect of it. And I personally experienced this like myself. I felt gross about the system as well because we were, I we would walk around, okay? People are, experiencing abject poverty and darkness, complete darkness, but the hotels have generators. Hotels are privately owned, right? They're privately owned and they have access to oil, right? Because they can purchase it because there's a black market for oil. The government is aware that there's a black market for oil. They have a queue system. People with like EVs can participate in the queue system. All of this is like literal fucking on the ground reporting coming to you live from Cuba, okay? So there's a queue system. You buy it for like $1 a gallon, right? And then you sell it. And the price of oil right now is $10 a liter. We asked every cab driver, okay? $10 a liter. And the way it works is people with electric vehicles also get into the queue system, but they don't need the oil, right? They have EVs. Yeah, it's that fucking expensive. A doctor told me that the average salary for a doctor in Cuba is around $17 a month. $17 a month. Okay? But that wasn't the problem. The real problem was the fact that makes up, that's around like 4,000 Cuban pesos, something around that. I can't remember the exact numbers, right? The issue is doctors have to fucking go back and forth. Doctors have to go back and forth. The hospital, right? They don't live at the hospital. They live at home. It's 500 pesos each way to go to the fucking hospital. If you're making 4,000 pesos a month and it's 500 every day, it's unbelievable. It's just not, you can't do it. How the fuck are you supposed to make it to the hospital? You can't. It's insane. It's unsustainable. This is destroying Iran, not the Iranian government. It's definitely designed to destroy both. I think liberals need to retire the people versus the alien, illegitimate regime framing, since those starving and bombing these countries don't make any distinction. Weakening state capacity is a feature of their civilian punishment strategy. Abso-fucking-lutely. Absolutely. So do you understand? Do you understand why I'm talking about it in the way that I am? In Havana today, I saw an old woman with painful injury burst into tears of joy when she got a bottle of Advil. My personal opinion is that everyone who should go to Cuba and bring the antibiotics and painkillers we take for granted in the U.S. Antibiotics over optics. You genuinely could script something with worse optics than this Cuba Convoy Lamau. Like, they literally work tirelessly to bludgeon the optics argument and to bastardize what was going on. And then they turn around and go, but what about the optics? Bitch, you're the one who fucking lied about it to make the optics look unsound. And then you fucking turn around and you go, oh, well, what about the optics? The optics look terrible. It's fucking ridiculous. It's like the people that literally participated in belittling this humanitarian aid mission to a fucking country that's being starved by ours, that want to also bring awareness to what our country is doing with the hopes that we can maybe make a change that will no longer asphyxiate the Cuban population. And motherfuckers go, what about the optics? And there's still people that are going, I like 5-star hotels. I like 5-star hotels a lot. They're really nice, you know. You know what I mean? It's fucking insane. I already explained it. It's like a bunch of fucking free 99 drones. I don't think these people are all paid for by the State Department. They're just doing the fucking regime propaganda for free. It blows my fucking mind. It's not bots, guys. There are literally people who have made it their life's mission to defend American imperialism because they think it makes them feel powerful or something. Obviously, there's like think tank liberals like Jeremiah Johnson, who's a ginormous piece of shit, right? Cuba's dictatorial regime is far more responsible for the impoverishment of the Cuban people than America is. It's a lie, an abject lie. Of course, his job is to defend liberalism when liberalism is falling apart. So, of course, he's going to say this lie. Someone goes, yeah, but man, like the embargoing their oil and causing a power grid failure does seem kind of shitty and cruel. I don't know if it makes the situation better. Like, this guy's a fucking liberal as well. But even he's like, come on, it's really messed up. I don't think the U.S. should embargo their oil, but it's ridiculous for tankies like Hasan to go sing the praise of a violent totalitarian regime and act like they're just small beans who never hurt nobody. Cuba is poor because it's controlled by murderous communist thugs. When is the last time Cuba double tapped a school full of children? Because America did that a few weeks ago, says Will Miniker. It's true. I had some words for this as well, right? The Epstein pedophile-led administration is double tapping schools, participating in the genocide in Gaza. And even on the domestic home front, we do worse shit than the Cuban government does on a daily fucking basis. 2 million people are in prison, incarcerated in the United States of America. 700,000 homeless people in the United States of America. 700,000. Unfucking believable. 700,000. On top of all of our violent foreign policy. And it blows my fucking mind. This is the wealthiest nation on earth, and people still go, oh, but these other countries, they're so violent. We have no leg to stand on, man. We have no leg to stand on. If you're defending America, you are not defending Americans, okay? If you're defending the current American government, if you're defending the current system, you do not care about your fucking neighbors, okay? It's that simple. I said our government is the principal party in Gaza's genocide, in Cuba's unjust blockade. We just killed 150 schoolgirls in Iran. In the wealthiest nation on earth, we have 700,000 homeless people, 2 million incarcerated, and you have the gall to say another one of our perceived enemies is violent. And the reason why you say that, the reason why people say that is because they want to defend American foreign policy. They want to defend the American sanctions regime. They want to say, no, it's not. It's actually happening because, you know, it's happening because the government is scary. It's communist. It's murderous, bloodthirsty. Another response I gave to liberal Jeremiah Johnson, whose operation, by the way, has said nothing about the humanitarian aid or the necessity for humanitarian aid or the conditions for everyday Cubans beyond demanding that the Trump administration bomb some of these fucking flotilla ships, by the way. That's the only output from this administration, this CN liberalism operation, New Liberals. That's the only thing they've said about Cuba. Audacity to fucking come out and say the thing that defines us on Code Pink and most of the DSA Extended Universe Convoy members is not complicated. It's America bad. Look, sometimes America's bad. That's quite literally the only lens they're capable of seeing the world through. It's why the DSA cozied up to Maduro. It's why Hasan thinks the Houthi terrorists are so cool and said America deserved 9/11. It's something is against America. It's good. End of story. They don't have an ideology beyond that. I said America can be good. Americans are good. You aren't one of them. You want to defend America's senseless bloodlust. We are death dealers around the world, and even Americans are waking up to the reality that our wars cause pain abroad and offer no benefit to ordinary Americans here. Unfucking believable. Yeah, and he's also obviously a genocide defender anyway. He's a genocide denier. There are a lot of good things I could say here. I could say that a lot of this is factually wrong. Joe Biden does not have dementia. Palestinians are being killed, but it's not a genocide. Biden's administration is very much trying to rein in Israel, etc. Jeremiah is also a coward who now realizes that this was not a smart thing to put in writing, but rather than admit to being a ghoul, he has tried to quietly edit his blog, thanks to the Wayback Machine. Yeah, here is the other guy. I've heard a lot of bad stuff about you, but really been enjoying the streams. Well, listen, thank you for actually, having the charitability and open-mindedness to actually listen to what I have to say rather than unconditionally believe all the fucking lies that people tell. That's the goal here. Because if you spend, more than 5 to 10 minutes in this fucking broadcast, you're very quickly going to realize that a decent amount of people spend a decent amount of time just actively shitting on everything I'm saying and doing and bastardizing it to the best of their fucking ability because no one wants to address the issues. Okay? That's it. Yeah, here's his friend, the vice chair of CN Liberals, arguing for a Trail of Tears 2.0. The best thing that we could do for indigenous people would be to end all tribal land designations, encourage them to relocate and integrate the modern society funded by the government. The two-tier system is horrible for Native people, dooms them into poverty and subjugation. She also literally said, literally demanded that the Trump administration murder the humanitarian aid flotilla. Like, the Trump administration go and blow up the boats that were going to Cuba. That's how fucking psychotic these people are. That's how bloodthirsty these people are. Okay? Yeah, sorry, but he has a point. I bet you tankies don't even know that Cuba has a prison camp full of prisoners of war that are kidnapped and tortured for years without charges. Look up Guantanamo Bay. But what you will learn will shock you. Oh, shoot. Read a little further on the Wikipedia article. Turns out my government is a totalitarian regime keeping POWs in camp in Cuba in open and the Cuban government has repeatedly told them to stop. Yeah. Thanks for your continued coverage on Cuba. Latinos grow up watching Telemundo and Univision and are taught that the common Cubans are evil. It's sick what we're doing to our brothers and sisters on the island. Thank you for your support. Hopefully one day we can see their great potential. I don't think everyone is like this, though, because there's so much solidarity amongst Latin American countries, both for Cuba. It's actually unbearable that the American government, led by Marco Rubio, has actively sought to eradicate the medical missions that Cuba engages in Caribbean countries and Latin American countries. It's unfucking believable that they've done this. I also got to see my friend, for the record. Okay, I got to see my friend that I had interviewed, if you guys recall, a long time ago, who had actually done these medical missions. Okay,